Welcome back to Cheddar News. Looking for a 360 stunning penthouse view of New York City, designer furniture, all high-end finishes of course, and a Park Avenue address? Well, you can have it all for a cool $169 million. Joining us now is Ryan Serhant, founder and CEO of Serhant and star of Bravo's, of course, $1 million listing New York. Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Tell us about this pretty pricey listing. We know it's the first time it's ever been publicly offered for sale.
Yeah, this is the definition of jaw dropping, and it is a true trophy residence. There's nothing else like it in the world. For trophy home purchasers who purchase brand and location, first and foremost, this is the equivalent of the Penthouse at One Hyde Park in London, at the Burj Khalifa. It is one of those types of properties because there's only one 432 Park Avenue in the world. And there's only one true penthouse. This apartment's never been on the market, ever. It was purchased sight unseen, off of plan, when the building was a hole in the ground, before it rose to nearly 1,400 feet in the air. And this is the true top floor. It's also the only floor in the entire building that was actually designed and built as a full floor unit. So it's a one of one. And the thing that grabs your attention the most is you walk in, and it is pin drop quiet. It is so structurally sound, it's incredible. And you have a 93-foot wingspan from your living to dining space. So you walk in and you're watching the sunrise, and you look left and you've got Central Park, the entirety of it. And you look right and you're looking all the way down towards the Statue of Liberty and ships coming in the Hudson Harbor. It's pretty wild and incredibly, it's a sight to see.
I mean, it's over 8,000 square feet. I'm looking at the pictures and the video we had just a moment ago, and it's easy for so many of us to daydream, but for so many of us, we are priced out of this quite substantially. So I wonder, what is your buyer pool like, given that the average person, and even the average, millionaire, can't afford this?
Yes, the asking price is $169 million, and we priced it like you would any listing. We looked at the top penthouses around the world. And actually, it's not as expensive as a lot of the top penthouses around the world, where between Dubai and Paris and London and Hong Kong and Singapore and Shanghai, houses are selling for between $200 and $300 million US. But this is also not a house, and we're aware of that. And it's a penthouse, which in New York is the creme de la creme. And so our buyer base is very wide and varied. Every buyer we've walked through, which has been a good amount actually, since we actually came to market, about 15, I would say, are easily Googleable. I'll say that. Every buyer is a billionaire, of which there are many in the world. A good amount of them have made money through crypto in the last year, or who have had a recent exit. They've IPO'd when they never thought they were going to IPO. They've had a massive raise in the last 12 months, and they never thought they were going to have that. And it's, it'd be surprising. You'd think that people would come through and they'd, pay cash for something like this. But we have a lot of people who come through with, with $90 million, and they're going to finance the rest. And there's lots of banks that'll do the financing for them. So we've been structuring some interesting conversations.
Yeah, if you can finance, or if you can pay cash, down payment $90 million, I think there's a bank out there that's going to help you afford the rest of it. Interesting though, you bring up the point of, people that have IPO'd, or, Bitcoin millionaires, multimillionaires, maybe even some billionaires out there. Can you just tell us though about the overall luxury real estate market here in New York City? Because we are hopefully kind of ending or tailing out of this pandemic. Is it picking up? What is it like right now?
It's the strongest I've ever seen it in my entire career. And I got into this business the day Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy in 2008. The first half of 2021, there was 135 contracts signed for luxury properties in New York City, which means over 10 million. That's the most 10 million plus properties ever signed in the first 6 months of any year ever. It was also obviously, I think, a 423% increase over what we saw in 2020, right, when COVID first hit, which means that there is an incredible demand and an insatiable appetite for luxury properties in Manhattan still to this day, even with the increased taxes, even with everything everyone talks about. New York City is an island. It is a rock, and there's only one of them. and it's also the most intellectually curious city in the world. And it's an amazing place to do business. And it's a place to own art. That's what these trophy homes and these luxury properties are. A penthouse at 56 Leonard in Tribeca, just went to contract for just under $50 million. And that's a lot of money for lower Manhattan. And there's been countless other deals. We just sold a 3-bedroom at 220 Central Park South. We did the first resale deal done in that building for $33 million. That's $11 million a bedroom. But people believe in brand in New York City. They believe in the power of the city. And every single time the city's had a reset, whether it's been 9/11, Lehman, Hurricane Sandy, or COVID, the city comes back twice as hard. And that is happening now. We sold a penthouse in Soho in August of last year, the depths of COVID. Why would you ever buy in New York City last year? New York City is dead, it's over, right? That's what everyone was saying, including our politicians. And I sold it to him for $22.5 million. Yesterday, unannounced, sight unseen, someone sent us an offer for 40. That's New York.
Kind of in that same vein, listen, first of all, you don't have to sell me on New York. I love New York City. I agree with you. It's the greatest place on the earth to live. I'm a native here. But did we see the same pandemic trends that we saw in kind of the overall real estate market here in New York City? Did at the beginning of this pandemic in the luxury market, people flee and then kind of a starting to trickle in? Or was it different?
No, New York City has been hit the hardest, I would say. We were doing very tough deals into the beginning part of this year, to be honest. We only really started to see an uptick in residential sales, especially in the luxury market in Manhattan and the greater boroughs at the beginning of January. Whereas the rest of the country really woke up last summer and kind of last spring when people realized they were locked up at home. And listen, when you want to move, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? You're busy. Kids are in school. You're at work. You don't think about it. You get home, you pass out, and you move in 2 years because you got too much to do. But when you're locked up at home and you can't go anywhere, you want that extra bedroom. And the houses just started flying. But New York is a big city, right? The average supply here that we have right now, I think it's 1.1 years worth of supply, which sounds like it's a lot. But at the same time, the average pre-COVID in New York City was just over 4 years of supply. And so we've really cut that down, right, by about 75%. But it's nothing like Florida. Your average days on market in Florida is, I think, 7. And I could be off on that, but it is very close to that number. And listen, luxury purchasers are everywhere. And New Yorkers, whether they're buying in New York or not, are the ones who are really pushing these markets to new heights. We sold the second most expensive home in the history of Florida in February for just under $140 million on the ocean to a New Yorker client of mine who went down and bought it with New York City's tax money. So shame on New York for losing it.
Yeah. Well, listen, I would say, good luck on that 160 plus, $1 million penthouse, but I know you don't need it. Enjoy the commission check when you do get it. Thank you so much for giving us the insight. And then there's that amazing video on that property. Ryan Serhant, founder and CEO of Serhant, and of course, the star of Bravo's $1 Million Listing New York.